Hi folks, and welcome to another episode of Careers and Coffee. Similar to last week, this is an episode talking about GCSE pathways for all of the students getting their results today. Again, we've got similar colleagues coming on to us, speaking around pathways, around FE, careers guidance, apprenticeships as well. So we're going to bring on all of them to talk to us a little bit more about pathways for the students getting their GCSEs today. Good morning, everyone. How are you all doing?
Well, thank you.
Morning, mate.
Morning.
Brilliant. So I think similar to what we did last week, if everybody is able to give sort of a brief introduction of who they are and what they do, and then we can get into some of the questions. So Kate, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, so morning guys, my name's Kate. I work with the Take Your Place programme, working with students in years 9 to 13 across schools and colleges, helping them to explore their next steps, whether that's GCSEs, apprenticeships, higher education, all of that sort of thing. I support schools and colleges in the Cambridgeshire area, and I also tend to lead on friends engagement for the work we do in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough.
Fantastic. Cheers, Kate. And Michael?
Hi, yeah, I also work for Take Your Place, the Nico project. So I'm a higher education champion working in West Norfolk. I do very similar role to Kate, just in a different location. It's all about pathways, helping students progress from years 9 all the way up to university, hopefully, or higher end degree level apprenticeships.
Brilliant, thank you. And over to Debbie.
Hi, I'm Debbie MacArthur. I work for Suffolk County Council within the skills team, and I manage Apprenticeship Suffolk. We are a project who are all about promoting apprenticeships, benefits of apprenticeships, working with SMEs and supporting people to access and gain apprenticeships.
Excellent. And over to Fred.
Good morning. I'm Fred, and I work for the AIM Group, which is a charity. And I also run the Ask programme in Suffolk and Cambridgeshire, and I help students from year 10 to year 13 to look at apprenticeship options.
Brilliant. And last but not least, Jackie.
Hi there, I work for Suffolk County Council as well in the skills team. My role is to support all the schools and colleges in Suffolk and Norfolk and some of them in Cambridge and Essex to upgrade their careers provision and make it the best it could possibly be for all the students in their schools and colleges. I'm also a qualified careers advisor as well.
Excellent, thank you folks. So, I mean, let's kick off. First question, you know, if I've opened my results this morning and they're not quite what I was expecting, who should I turn to for that? I'll go over to Jackie for that question.
Well, judging by what we've been hearing at the moment, there's a lot of people who are very pleased with their results after sort of the debacles of the last week or so, but are going to be disappointed. So their first point of call would be their school or their college to go back to them and you know, just sort of check out with them what they are, if there's any options, and you know, have a discussion on why they are what they are. But I think one of the key things about today is there are plenty of options. Whatever results you've got, yeah, there's plenty of options out there for you. So don't go into a complete meltdown and panic. Huh?
And if I am that student, am I able to go and speak to my college about that, or should I be speaking to my school about those options?
Well, it depends what your plans were for post-16. If you plan to go to your school sixth form, for example, obviously you need to speak to them. If you plan to go to your college and you've already applied, you need to speak to them in the first instance. But even if you were thinking of going to a school sixth form and you haven't got the grades to do the A-levels, go to your local college and start talking to them, because they have got a lot of flexible options at all different levels.
Brilliant. And if I am one of those students that we have seen in the news today, and a lot of folks are opening those envelopes and they're getting brilliant news, if I've already picked what my A-levels or BTEC, whatever it might be, am I still able to change those, or are they sort of fixed and concrete and I can't change them? So yeah, can I change one?
Back to me, yeah?
Yes, back.
Yes, I mean,
Firing
yes,
them at you today.
you possibly can. I think you first need to talk to your parents, and also go back to what your career thoughts were in the beginning for why you chose those A levels or that particular course. If you can, talk to a careers advisor at your school or college. They all have them. If you can't get hold of them, there's also the National Careers Service, which is 0800 100 900, and have a think about what your options are. I know that some courses may be full, so you might not be able to get on to what you want, but it's a a considered process. Talk to a few people before you sort of just make a snap decision. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. And I'm going to sort of direct questions over to colleagues at Nico now. Now, if I'm a student, again, I've got great grades and I'm off to college soon, what should I be expecting when I sort of enroll? What's the next steps for me about going to college? So I'll give that one to Kate to kick off with.
Okay, well, I think first of all, it's great that students are getting the results that they feel they deserve. It's been a really tricky year for everyone involved this year. And I think the biggest thing that with moving to the centre assessed grades, hopefully students will still be able to celebrate today. It's one of those kind of rites of passage moving from year 11, whether you're going to a school sixth form, whether you're going to a college, to kind of enjoy that transition period. A lot of schools at the moment, we recognise, don't fully know what the new start of term will look like in September. So I think the biggest thing we could recommend students to do is have a chat with people from the new school, whether they're staying on where they are, whether they're moving to a college or a sixth form. Have a chat with whoever is their contact there and ask them questions. They should have had some transition details before the summer break. Letting them know about when the start of term might be, whether they're going to be in a social bubble with certain year groups, all of that sort of information that will help make the new start of term easier. And social media is a great place. A lot of places today are on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they're on Instagram, telling students what's going to be happening in the autumn term, and also linking them up with students as well, having a chat with friends who might be moving with them. Obviously, everything could change in the next couple of weeks, and we don't fully know what the start of term and this autumn term will look like, but hopefully it will be as normal as it can be for those students. And they've already shown great resilience getting through kind of the final bit of year 11. Hopefully they can carry that forwards and still enjoy the start of the new term. And remember that actually this is a pathway they've chosen. They were excited about this pathway, maybe opening up doors to a career they're excited about, or starting something new for the first time. And so hopefully they can still have that excitement today and just talk to people. I know it can be quite nerve-wracking talking to somebody you don't know, but the biggest thing we would say is have a chat. Don't be afraid to ask questions. There isn't a question that's silly. Everyone will have heard that question before, and they'll just want to help you settle in and transition into that new environment as well as you can, so you can enjoy it.
That's brilliant advice. Cheers, Kate. And question for Michael. If I'm a student, and let's say I've enrolled to go to my school sixth form, but actually I want to go off to the local college instead, am I able to do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Yeah. The biggest thing is obviously to have that line of communication to make it very clear as to what you are thinking about doing, and to make sure you get the right advice as soon as possible. The key thing is to act quickly if you have made a change of mind. Yes, you do need to speak to the sixth form to tell them that's what you're going to do, but you obviously need to apply still to the college. You need to be able to communicate with them, make sure that they have that communication between them, so that the information is passed between them, so nothing gets lost, nothing gets confused. You do need to try and stay on top of it. Don't just think that they will just deal with it and forget about it. You do need to be pursuing each line of inquiry that you make, making sure that it follows it through. But yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic, thank you. And now I'm going to start to pick on the apprenticeship teams. So Debbie, can you give us sort of an example of the pathway for a young person who may be starting an apprenticeship come September?
Okay, so the employer that they are going to be working for will have identified and appointed a training provider. The training provider will meet with the apprentice if they haven't done already, and get them enrolled onto their program. So there is an enrolment process that needs to go through, like there is with going on to any course. during that enrolment process, they'll discuss what the journey of learning is going to look like. They will discuss things like, what evidence they would need to collect. They'll talk about how the apprenticeship is going to be structured. They'll talk about knowledge, skills and behaviours, which are the three main indicators of completing an apprenticeship. They'll discuss any of the mandatory qualifications that are in the apprenticeship. And they will also talk to you about your delivery. And again, likewise with colleges, some of that delivery might look slightly different now, but they will be able to tell you how different that is. Some of the if it's a skills-based qualification in terms of physical hands-on skills like a construction, carpentry, hairdressing, that kind of thing, then that may have changed slightly. And whereas they would be normally 1 day a week in college, it's a given that everyone's going to do that, that delivery might have changed slightly. So again, same advice, contact with your, speak to your employer, speak to the training provider who's been allocated to you, talk about that and what the impact that might have on how you progress through your apprenticeship.
Brilliant, thank you, Debbie. And Fred, if I'm a young person and actually I'm considering an apprenticeship now, where's the best place to have a look?
So you would have to I'll go on to the government website that has all the information about apprenticeships and any other sort of college courses, T-levels and things like that. But the best place to go to find an apprenticeship would be the Find an Apprenticeship website. Also, again, as we mentioned earlier, the National Career Service is great to get any kind of support with apprenticeships, because the application you can apply at any time. Now it's you can apply now, but the recruitment process can take a little bit of time. So it's good if you have a college place already as a backup, because as we said, it's quite a little bit of a longer process. So it's best to apply quite early on for an apprenticeship. But they're all updated on the Find an Apprenticeship website, and you can research those, get updated every week as well. So again, you can apply at any time, but it's good to have a backup plan in place anyway.
Definitely, thank you. And first sort of a question for both of you, if you're a young person, you've got a learning difficulty, what support can they get to help complete their qualification? Who wants to tackle that?
I can tackle that, and then Fred can fill in if I forget anything. The support available is exactly the same as it would be if you were going into a full-time course within a sixth form or within a college. I would say that although you are going into employment, you're still entitled to the same level of support to help you through that qualification. I would say it's also very important to make sure that you do declare any support that you need. Some people feel that if they declare a learning need or an additional support need, that somehow that's going to mean that the employer doesn't want to take them on, or the college is not going to be interested or anything. But it's really, really vital to be honest and upfront with your training provider and your employer at the beginning. Nobody wants you to fail. And there are lots of systems in place to make sure that you're supported through that. Even if it's, you'll be entitled, if there are exams in your apprenticeship, you will be entitled to additional time, the same as anybody who would be in taking exams for a course in college. So it's important to have those open and honest conversations so that the support can be put in place for you in the beginning. And you're not declaring it 6 months in when all of a sudden you're behind with your coursework because you didn't let somebody know that you have dyslexia or dyspraxia or whatever the case may be. So be honest and upfront at the beginning, and the support will be there.
Brilliant. Cheers, Debbie. And just another question for you as well. Given how odd these times are, there's a lot of businesses that have went out of business. Now, if I'm one of those young people who had an apprenticeship ready to roll from September, and now my employer has went out of business or into administration, what should I be doing?
Okay, so if you had an apprenticeship already lined up and there was a provider attached to that apprenticeship already, and you know who that provider was, they, I think, would be your first port of call. They will be able to support you to find an alternative employer to take you through that apprenticeship. I think you should also consider the full-time option, so that you are at least continuing to work towards whichever your vocational outcome is that you want to study towards. If you start on a full-time course, you can always transition into an apprenticeship at any time during the course of that course, or follow the same advice that Fred's already given in terms of looking on the Find an Apprenticeship on the gov.uk website. But you can also contact my team at Apprenticeship Suffolk. We're working with a lot of employers at the moment who are actively seeking apprentices. And so, yeah, our apprenticeships suffolk.org, you can make contact with us through that. And we can support you too, basically.
Brilliant. Cheers, Debbie. And now I want to come back to a little bit more on sort of further education and college and sixth form, etc. So sort of questions for Jackie, Kate and Michael. Now, yeah, if I've enrolled at college, yeah, am I able to say, for example, you know, get a part-time job whilst I'm there? What's the guidance on that? Who wants to tackle that one? Yeah, Jackie? You're on mute.
Thanks, sorry. So most college courses, although they're advertised as full time, they would be mainly 3.5 days a week. Yeah? So there is some time for you to do some part-time work in there. So having said that, some of the traditional part-time jobs that 16 to 19, 18-year-olds have got is in terms of hospitality and retail are on the decline a little bit, but yes, they can certainly get a job. It would help them with their general employability skills, even if it's not in the sector that you're wanting to go into. You're still learning how to interact with people, how to work in teams, how to communicate, etc.
And another, Debbie.
Can I just say the only thing to bear in mind with that, and this is from previous experience, if there is a work experience element within your study program, you need to be able to commit to that work experience as well. Or if there is any reason as to why you need to go into college for additional days, or your days change or things change within your course, you need to bear in mind that that might what's the word?
Impact.
Yeah. So, you know, try and make sure your employment is a little bit flexible so that you can still meet the commitments of the course that you're undertaking.
Excellent. Thanks, Debbie. And over to Kate.
And the other thing just to add within that, especially for kind of schools and colleges looking at students, what their next steps are going to be, we mustn't ignore the opportunities that a volunteering post might give to them. Even at the moment, a lot of places are still wanting people to provide some of that virtual support. So that might be something that they can talk about in applications further down the line. We don't know what's going to happen with some of those traditional work experience programs next year that kind of year 12s in a sixth form environment might be asked to take part in. So actually looking at volunteering or things they can do in their local community, they've all got those transferable skills, and it's great things they can then talk about, whether they then go on to apply for a higher degree apprenticeship, whether they apply for university or go straight into the world of work after they've finished that kind of post-16 pathway as well.
And we've just got a question as well. So I disagree with my centre assessment grades. What can I do? Who wants to tackle that one?
So I don't mind having a quick go. I think the first thing I'd say is have a chat with the school, whether it's a careers advisor there, whether it's a head of year, because it will be really helpful for you to understand the rationale behind where those grades have come from. Our students will obviously have an idea of what their predicted grades were at whatever point the school provided them. If there's been a huge deviation from that, you need to talk to the school to find out why it's changed, and then understand what the process has been. If there's still disagreement there, there has been talk around the options of if students want to sit in the autumn series, when they would have the opportunity to sit that exam that they would have taken in the summer. But the other thing I'd say is, if the reason they disagree with it is because they think it's going to negatively impact where they'd like to go next, have a chat with whoever the provider is for their next step, whether it's school, a college, or even an employer for an apprenticeship. And actually, there's a lot of flexibility out there. They're recognising that these aren't usual times at the moment, and people are still taking students on, even if they miss either the predicted grades or, like was mentioned earlier, colleges might offer an alternative pathway that's still helping students to reach that end goal as well. But I think it comes back to a lot of what we're saying. Talk to the people around you, talk to the school and talk to the providers to see what the whole story is.
Brilliant, thank you, Kate. And Jackie, I think you got something to add on that one?
Yes, I just wanted to mention the maths and English. If your maths and English is under a 4, you will still have to, I mean, obviously you can discuss with your school or college, as Kate has said, you know, if that can be changed. But if it is stuck there, you will need to retake your maths and English. And that's been a rule that's applied for the last number of years. Yeah. So, and there's both schools and colleges have a lot of provision for people to resit those exams.
Excellent.
And that could apply for apprenticeships as well. Just want to add in there that can quite often be the case for apprenticeships.
Brilliant. Cheers, folks. And just whilst we're talking about college, you know, what finance support could a young person get when having to travel to college? Who wants to tackle that one?
I'll have a go.
I don't mind if you are. I've not spoken for a while.
Mike's on it.
I mean, first and foremost, obviously each person's financial situation is different, so it's always done by, you know, case by case basis. But you do need to speak to the college that you'll be going to. There we go. That's nicely done. I was going to mention about the 16 to 19 bursary funds. Now they'll obviously assess that based on your situation. Some people will not be entitled to it, and that does happen. But it's you know, it's obviously down to what's going on in your life and the people around you that are there to support you. But it's there to obviously help pay for travel and other things that you might need. So yeah, really, essentially, you need to go to the student advisors that they'll have at the college to open up that conversation. If you do need help, obviously speak to the advisors you've got around you, and parents and such will help you facilitate those conversations. But yeah, there is support available for you. You just need to ask for it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Michael. Jackie?
Yes, just to add to that, thanks, Michael. In terms for Suffolk and Norfolk, we both have, the county councils both have post-16 travel arrangements. I won't go into the details about it. It's Suffolk on board is for the Suffolk one, whereas you can apply for a bus pass in effect. A lot of people have to pay for it. It sometimes seems a lot of money because they're paying up front, but there are other options. So in Suffolk we have the Endeavour card, which gives 25%, I think, is discounted fares for students in education. And also a lot of the train, there's the young person's rail card, but also a lot of the bus services and the train companies have their own arrangements. So maybe you buy 10 tickets, yeah, and it works out as cheaper than using the county council buses or something like that. So it's a bit of a minefield here, but sort of investigate, certainly by looking at Suffolk on board, and Help You Choose on the Norfolk website has got lots of information about the different travel arrangements. Excellent.
Thanks, Jackie. And I mean, whilst I've got you, Jackie, I mean, you know, what if you are a young person, you've got your GCSEs, you know, you're pleased with them, but you're sat there and you think, I have no idea what I want to do. You know, who do you speak to? What's your advice?
It would be, if you're still in your school or college, go and talk to your careers advisor. That's what they're there for. As we've mentioned already, the National Careers Service is there as well. But you could also be doing some stuff at home. So looking at things like the Buzz quiz on a website called I Could, or the National Careers Service, or your school might have a portal such as Start or Unifrog, where they have little psychometric test things that you can do. Don't sort of accept these as the be all and end all, but it's a tool to start thinking, yeah, about what you're good at, what you like doing, and what opportunities are out there. The other people to talk to perhaps would be the local support and the local authorities. So in Norfolk, they have their young persons workers, and they're on 0344 800 8022. And on Suffolk, we have the Source. There's a range of different telephone numbers. I can't remember them all, but they're all on the Source, on the page that we've given you, where you can talk to an early help coach who, again, might be able to start helping you talk through your options and talk through your ideas.
Excellent, thank you. And yeah, if you're a young person, you're just thinking, actually, I just want to go off and get a job after school. Are you able to do that? And you know, what should be their next steps to be able to do that, given the circumstances?
Under the terms of what is called raising the participation age, all young people have to stay in education, training, or learning until they're 18. So getting a job without training isn't really an option. So it could be a college course, school course, it could be an apprenticeship, could be a traineeships, and there's a lot of other what we call re-engagement courses that count towards that raising participation age. So just getting a job without training, I'm afraid, isn't really an option. You'll have your local authority on the phone trying to get you into some kind of education or training that's going to give you skills and qualification to help you keep and get a job in the long run.
Brilliant. And you just touched on traineeship there. What's a traineeship?
So a traineeship is a roughly a 6-month program. You would be working with possibly a college or maybe one of the smaller training providers. You wouldn't be paid. You get your expenses paid. You'd get the opportunity to carry on with your maths and English and IT skills, as we've talked about earlier. But basically, it's sort of a work placement. You'd be working with an employer and getting the skills that you need to then perhaps apply for an apprenticeship, or work later on down the line. Did you want to add anything more to that, Debbie?
No, I mean there's a lot of focus on traineeships at the moment, and that's part of the government's sort of restart program in I can't remember what something for jobs. That's if that's for me, I'm in the bath, as they say. Yes, so there's a lot of focus on traineeships at the moment, and they are now able to develop them more individually. So if you are in a situation where maybe 4, 6, 8 weeks, 2 months or whatever is what you need to get to support your transition into what you want to do next, which would probably traineeships are an ideal transition into apprenticeships, then it won't necessarily be a full 6-month program. They can be anything between 4 weeks to 6 months, and they can be much more tailored towards your individual needs.
Fantastic. Cheers, Debbie. I just want to briefly touch on SEND and alternate provision as well. So if I'm a student, if I was in alternate provision and didn't take any GCSEs, what can I do next? I'll push that one over to Jackie. And you're on mute.
Was my phone. So if you're in an alternative provision, we call them pupil referral units in Suffolk. I think they're called short stay units in Norfolk, all sorts of different names. The staff in those schools will be really working actively with you throughout the whole of your year 11 to get you into some kind of education or training or learning. A lot of them, they recently had some additional money from the government to support those young people through the summer as well. So I know that in Suffolk, a lot of ours have been working with them throughout the whole of the summer holidays to sort of keep them engaged, motivated, etc., etc. Back to just sort of the colleges. At the colleges, they have a range of courses at all different levels. We talk about levels, but for example, an A-level course is a level 3 course. GCSE would be equivalent to level 2, and so on. But they would have courses from entry level to level 1 to level 2 to level 3 and higher. So there is a huge amount of provision. We can't. They're all called slightly different names. There's getting into work or independent living or Prince's Trust team programs. So they have lots of different names. On top of that, we have locally a lot of other courses that aren't at college. We have one called Minding the Gap, One Step Closer. Yes, there's a huge range of courses. If you're in the unfortunate position that you haven't got the support of your organisation, contact the local authorities. So through Help You Choose or through the Suffolk County Council, through the Source site, there are people there who are working in your locality and know exactly what opportunities there are in your localities.
Brilliant. Cheers, Jackie. Now I'll give you a rest and then I'll pick on other guests. Yeah. So in terms of, this question, so what tips would you give for transitioning from GCSEs to A levels in terms of level of study and different learning environments, etc.? So if Nico could answer that, and then I'll ask the same question for apprenticeships. Again, how would you transition from GCSEs to apprenticeships? So, hey, Michael, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, we'll double team it. Do you want to start?
Go for it. Yeah, go for it. Well, I think one thing we have to identify with that is actually there's an additional level, which is some of our Year 11 students who are getting their results today might not have been in a classroom or an education environment since the schools were closed. There are lots of hit and miss figures in terms of how much engagement those students have had with education. So actually, the transition might seem a little bit tougher this year because they feel one step removed from education. So one of the things that I think would be great is for students to spend some time reflecting either on their own or talking to their friends, talking to family at home about what sort of learner they are. Are they audio learner? Are they a visual learner? How well do they cope taking notes? And all of that sort of thing to help get them thinking back into that mind frame about being in a classroom, whether it's physically in school, whether it's being back in that virtual environment, and exploring, well, how are they going to make the most of it? We know that schools and colleges are doing a lot of work for that autumn term about helping students transition back into that environment. So there should be support available from school and college staff to help them get used to that different learning environment. It might be that they've come from a school where actually they're used to being in a big class where there's 20 or 30 students, but actually we know for some of the sixth form subjects, they might be in a very small group. So they might be able to have a lot more one-to-one support from a teacher, whereas before there was the ratio was 1 to 5, 1 to 6 for teacher to student. In terms of a different learning environment, this is where the lockdown scenario has actually helped, because a lot of schools, a lot of colleges, and we've seen it with the universities as well, have created kind of virtual tours. So actually you might be able to go on the website of wherever you're going, and it might even be the same for some of those apprenticeship employers. You could go and have a look around online from the comfort of your own home. Family can do it with you as well, or you could do it with friends, all of you on the same video call, and just see what that school's going to look like. Okay, where am I going to need to go on my first day? How am I going to get there? Visualize it so you can kind of take some of the stress out of it. You might be able to read their policies about what are they doing with social distancing as well, so that you know, okay, on day one, I'm going to be interacting with this number of people, or actually I'm only going to see this year group on this day, to help make it feel a bit easier. Ordinarily, we hear students say that the step up from GCSEs to A-levels is a tough one. So I'd also say, thinking about student health and wellbeing, don't expect miracles on that first day. It is going to be a tricky situation, even if you're staying at the school where you've done years 7 through to 11. Sixth form has a different feel to it, so just allow yourself time to settle into that new scenario, talk to the people around you, try and make friends. But again, don't be afraid to talk to those teachers. If you're struggling, if you're worrying about something, or if you're finding, actually, I've picked this subject and I'm struggling with it, chat to the course tutors and they'll be able to help you talk through what your options are. Michael, I suspect there's some bits.
Not really, mate. You cover a lot, but do you know what I think with the situation obviously we've been in? I think a lot of students now are going to be a lot better at independent learning. Doing things on their own, researching things on their own than they ever would have been, because they've been forced into a situation where they had to do that for themselves. And as we know, not every student has that kind of support network at home that's going to be encouraging them to do it. So there will be a mismatch. There will be students that have done that, and there will be those that have been proactive, and there'll be those that have dropped off. The ones that dropped off will need more support for when they return back into that environment. With all that said, and the independent learning skills that they're going to have kind of naturally have picked up now, a lot of schools will be probably using the kind of the blended learning idea, because they've now been forced to do a lot of things online, and everything's sort of virtual. They're going to obviously still want students in the classroom, but I think they're going to be a little bit more flexible with the approach, and they'll probably encourage students to do stuff online still, which I think in this day and age is exactly what we need for us as a nation. We need to be able to do that with our young people, to train them on technology a lot better. So I think things like Google Classrooms and Microsoft will come in a little bit more, and I think there will be more of that. So really, yes, ordinarily transitioning into A-levels is difficult, but I think there's going to be a bit more technology side of things where they have to kind of learn that as well. So it's, none of us know the answer to it perfectly, because obviously it's a new situation. But all we can say is that the support is available, and it is all about asking for it. And if you are showing signs of you're struggling, or you're finding things really difficult and it's affecting your personality or your characteristics, the things that you do day to day, and things are on your mind, you just find it really tough, you do need to reach out. And it could be to anyone, as long as that person will, have an open ear, just listen to you. It's really important to look after yourself, as Kate said. We're here. You'll see us in schools as well, the Take Your Place team. Obviously, you've got your teachers, but everyone wants you to succeed. That's the main thing. Do never feel like you're on your own with it. You really have got support there with you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Michael. And again, that same question to Debbie and Fred. How should a young person be preparing for that transition from GCSE to an apprenticeship? And I'll go with Fred first on that one, then come to you, Debbie.
Okay.
So apprenticeships are really different from the education environment, in the sense that it's much more hands-on. You would actually be doing a job that you enjoy, but you also at the same time you'll actually be working. So there's a big responsibility element, in the sense that you'll actually be doing work. You'll be shadowing somebody to begin with, and then you'll also be doing your education. So it's combining both education and work. So again, responsibility is a lot, but it's really good if you're a very hands-on and practical kind of learner. It's worth checking with your training provider how your education side is going to look, whether it's a drop day, a college, or a lot of online support has been done, especially recently when it comes to the education side of the apprenticeship. So there's always a tutor online that can help you and support. So again, like Michael said, if you are unsure about anything, it's worth checking with those training providers and your employer to see how it's all going to look as well. But it's
Excellent.
very
Thank
different
you, Fred.
setting,
And
I guess.
Debbie, anything else to add on that one?
Yeah, I think the thing I would say is that apprenticeships are not an easier option. They are an alternative option. And what you need to bear in mind is that you will be studying towards a qualification that is undoubtedly exactly the same as your counterparts who are on full-time courses. You will still have your deadlines to work towards. You will still have work that you need to do. You'll still have deadlines of things that you need to work towards. And so you need to make sure that you are allowing time for your, obviously you've got your working time, you've got your studying time, but it's also important as well to make sure that you're looking after yourself. So time management, I think, is something that you need to learn quite quickly when you're doing an apprenticeship.
Great advice, thank you. And we've just got another question in. So, what advice would you give to a parent of a SEND student who went to a mainstream school and has suddenly decided they don't want to go to college or anywhere else and just retreat to their bed? Who wants to tackle that one? Looking at Jackie. Fire away.
So the advice here really is to talk to your local authority. So in Suffolk, the contacts on the source, there's people in different local areas, the early help coaches, but also then the young persons workers, and similarly in Norfolk County Council. They would be able to, this is their skill set basically, to work with these young people with multiple concerns. There's a lot of small providers out there who are not just focused on the education part, they're also focused on the mental health part and getting people re-engaged and building their confidence and self-esteem. So it wouldn't be about badgering them into, going to a large college where they feel absolutely terrified. It's sort of small steps and taking it slowly with lots of support. With those workers in the local authorities, they also can work on a multi-agency basis. So that's a really horrible local authority speak, isn't it? But working with lots of other organisations out there who can help that young person, but also help the family as well, because often it's a whole family needs to get together to sort of support these young people. So I would encourage them to go straight to the local support in their relevant local authority. So as we've got the signs up there on the source, and the same on Help You Choose, there's one local number, one is 0344 800 8022.
Brilliant, thank you, Jackie. Now I want to talk a little bit about T-levels. So I suppose, whilst I've got you, Jackie, can you explain what T-levels are? Because I know it's quite a contentious topic for a lot of folks.
So T levels were brought in by the government a few years ago now. The T stands for technical levels, and it's meant to sound like A levels, T levels, so that's what that's about. So they've got broad sector areas, and they've been developed with employers, and they're equivalent to 3 A levels, so it's a level 3 course. And that one of the big differences in this is the amount of work experience that they would get. So it's 45 days work placement across the 2 years. They're starting to come on board now. So you'll see Suffolk New College have got design, surveying, planning for construction, and a digital course, and an education and childcare course starting this year. From next year, we've got courses at West Suffolk College, more at Suffolk New College as well, and similarly across Norfolk County Council, Norwich City College, all the other big FE colleges will be starting these courses from now. So a great opportunity, as I say, very much sector based. Yeah. So it's thinking about if you want to go into the broad area of construction, this is the sort of thing you might be looking at.
And if I'm doing a T level, do I have to do any sort of work experience as part of that?
Well, it's 45 days work placement as part of that T level. It's a mandatory part of the T level.
So how does that work? If I'm a young person, I can't go to an employer. How do I get those 5 days? Playing devil's advocate now.
Absolutely, yeah. So obviously the colleges, as part of their offer of the T levels, the colleges have got responsibility to help find these work placements. I'm glad that's not my job, to be quite honest, especially now. How much of them they'll be doing virtually? I mean, there are still people working. Let's not think that everybody's on lockdown. You know, we go out in the streets and we do see people on construction sites who are working in a socially distanced way. The schools are going to be back. Digitally, you know, it's an obvious one. There are still people working on these things. So it's not as though there isn't work out there. Yes, it's going to be tough, yeah. And the government have broadened what they consider a work placement to be, I think, even before lockdown. So there's a broad range. So it's the colleges would be their first point to call. The young people wouldn't be up to them to go and find their work placement. It's very much a college responsibility.
And okay, Debbie.
I just want to add, as Jackie says, the T levels are split into occupational areas, and it's important to make sure that if you want to do a T level, that there is one available for you in the area that you want to go into, because in some vocational areas, for example, within social care, there won't be a corresponding T level. The idea with that is that if you want to progress within social care, that you would do it via an apprenticeship. So it's important to check.
Brilliant. And just on the work experience side of things, you know, is it still meaningful if it's digital, Jackie, if I'm doing that work experience?
Whose definition of meaningful do you want to use? It depends what you're doing, doesn't it? I mean, if you're just sitting on a Zoom call or a whatever Teams call watching somebody else doing something, then it's not particularly meaningful. It's the same as the old work experience. If you were just there doing the photocopying, it's not particularly meaningful. If you are actually being given projects to do, and you're going away and doing them, or you're communicating with other colleagues or other people from that employer, virtually or face to face, and you're getting something to do that can actually show your skills and help you develop your experience, then yes, it's meaningful. I think it doesn't matter if it's virtual or if it's face to face. We can still have meaningless face to face work experience.
Brilliant, thank you. And next question. So I keep hearing the phrase lifelong learning. What does it mean? I thought I'd be finished learning when I reach 18. Boy, if only that was true. Who wants to tackle that one? Or I can pick on someone. Debbie, do you want to go for that?
I was going to say I'll give it a bash. I think my interpretation of lifelong learning is the fact that learning doesn't stop when you're 18, that you continue to learn and you continue to develop. But it also means, as I say to me, and I'm happy for anybody to butt in and change the perception. But for me, it's about the fact that you don't have to do it all now. You can learn throughout the whole of your life. You can do it in incremental steps. You know, you can perhaps complete your A levels, maybe do a foundation course, start on an apprenticeship at a level 3 or a level 4. You could then go on to do a degree, and you just continue your education throughout your life. I think it tends to be a term that relates to sort of post 16, maybe post 18 learning. So I say that's my interpretation, but I'm open to anybody other suggestions if it's different.
Yeah, go to Kate and then Jackie.
I think it also reflects the fact that there were generations previously where people would come out of school and they would stay in one profession, one career for their entire life. We know now that the young people we're working with and in the lower year groups, the likelihood of them changing career is very, very high. All of us have probably been in a number of different roles since we finished in education. So therefore, whenever we change industry, whenever we change role, we're always learning and taking on board new things. We talk to young people a lot about transferable skills because they've got those skills for life. They're learning how to apply them in different environments, and they're always going to be tested and always taking on board new things for the toolbox, so to speak, to take through them with life. So I think that's why it's that kind of lifelong journey rather than just education finishing at the age of 18.
Excellent. Cheers, Kate. Jackie?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, if you're in particular professions like law and medicine, for example, you will never stop doing exams and qualifications. You'll be doing them all of your life, basically. And if even whatever job you're in, if you've got a good employer, they will be talking to you on at least an annual basis and talking to you about what do you want to do next, where do you want to progress, what we call CPD, which is continuing professional development, what opportunities are there for you, and possibly offer you the opportunity to do either formal qualifications or possibly informal qualifications or courses. So we're all in a place, I think, of still continuing to learn all the time. Yeah. And if you want to sort of change your career, you very much might need to go back to a more formal qualification route and start learning something completely different again and getting that recognition.
Yeah, I remember being asked this question in front of 300 year 10s by 2 year 10s on stage, and they said, what's lifelong learning? And I said it's the equivalent of, if you have the latest phone, Samsung, whatever, you always buy the latest things because they do more stuff. They take better photos, the calls are clearer, the music sounds better, and so you continuously update it because you want better quality, in the same way that you wouldn't still be on your Nokia 2210 in 2020. And then they all sort of got it and they're like, oh yeah, I always want the latest iPhone. I said, well, the employers want staff with the latest qualifications and CPD and skills to be able to do better work and be more productive. So yeah, I basically said to them, be the best iPhone you can be. Right. Other manufacturers are available. So next question, what are the alternatives to uni? Who wants to take that one? I think that probably should be for the folks at Nico. So I'll pick on Michael for that.
Yeah, go on. There are plenty of alternatives to uni. A lot of young people seem to think that there's almost an expectation of them to go over to university, be it from their parents, family, or from the school that they're in. There isn't. You can do lots of other things. We're fortunate in this conversation here to have apprenticeship team with us, so they are able to give more detailed information about the higher and degree level apprenticeships, which are an alternative to university, but are at equivalent levels. You don't have to go into education after you're 18. So if you do want to go into employment, you can. You can do internships, traineeships. You could join the military. There are plenty of options out there for you. Once you've surpassed 18 and you've finished with the education in that form. But if you do want to continue learning further and further, then you can. But if you don't want to do university, you have got those options available. You can find out more on the Help You Choose website, Take Your Place website, National Career Service. There's so much information available out there for you to explore. We've talked a lot about talking to people. Communication is key. You really do need to just kind of open up the dialogue. You've got to have a conversation, and that way you'll get the best advice. Thanks for putting up the Take Your Place website. But yeah, the information is there. It's just a case of going out and finding it. Do you want to add anything on the apprenticeship side of things? Because I know that there's a lot more in there than what I've just mentioned.
Yeah, apprenticeships definitely are an alternative to uni. And I would say that one of the benefits with apprenticeships is that you don't have to dash straight into a degree level apprenticeship. You can work your way up, and you can work your way through the different levels within your chosen vocational career. But if you do decide to, and a lot of large companies now have got sort of parallel programs where they've got a graduate program and they've also got a degree apprenticeship program, and they will bring you in and support you through your apprenticeship, and you'll be studying towards your degree. You'll be associated with a university, and probably carrying out a very similar level of study, if if that's the route that you want to go down. But also, I think a great place to look is the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education. They have some really good diagrams on there about different career pathways and the journey that you can take to get to a particular place that you want to be. It also lists all of the apprenticeships on there across all the different levels. And if you search for a particular industry sector, you'll probably see that there is a level 3 option, probably a level 5 option, a level 6 option, maybe a level 7 option. And so what it demonstrates is that you can take it in bite-sized chunks. And the other benefit to that is that if you take on a level 4 apprenticeship and then think, actually, I'm having a rethink now, and whilst I like doing what I'm doing, I've seen in a different department they do something else, and I'm wondering whether or not that might be a better option for me. You're not kind of dropping out of a 3-year course. You're completing your level 4, and then you might go on and do the next level in something that is slightly different to how you started out. So I hope I've kind of explained that properly.
No, that's great. Thank you, Debbie. Okay, I've got 3 hands up. Let's go to Kate.
Can I just add a slightly different interpretation to that question? I know it says we interpret university as being a higher education pathway. It might be that young people out there are thinking they'd like to explore a degree program or maybe a foundation degree leading to that, but actually the environment of that university setting doesn't work for them. It's also worth our young people exploring what some of the local colleges can offer. So I know in Norfolk, places like City College Norwich have their own higher education department. So actually, if staying closer to home and having a slightly different setting works for you, don't discount those college environments as well. I know College of West Anglia do as well. So it might be worth exploring what our young people mean by when they say they don't want to go to university. Is it they don't want to go to a degree, or is it actually that university environment is the one that's not right for them, and therefore that college setting might work better?
Brilliant, thank you, Kate. And I know Michael, Jackie, you had something to add as well?
Yep. I just wanted to add as alternatives to university, there's also self-employment, of course. Yeah. Easier at 18 than at 16 because of the financial things of legal responsibility, but is possible at 16, 17. So in terms of self-employment, obviously you haven't got a boss. Equally, you don't have a boss to blame. Yeah. So your successes and failures are up to you. Yeah. And from my experience of knowing people who are self-employed, they always take their work home with them. They never leave it behind. But you might be developing some little business, during lockdown or before, and you think, yeah, I'm making a bit of money on this. How am I going to make this into my career rather than going on to a course? I think Prince's Trust have a lot of support for young people about self-employment, so that would be the place I would direct people to go and look at.
Excellent. And Michael, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, what you just said there, Jackie, is definitely where lifelong learning comes in, for sure. If you become self-employed, you are learning a lot. Welcome to the world of finance. All I can say. Yeah. So yeah, with with what I just said, I did forget to mention as well, you don't have to go straight into university once you've finished. You can take time out. You can take, a lot of people talk about a gap year. A gap year, just to kind of summarize, is just a year out of education where you would go and you would try and build on your experiences. A lot of people will try and find something constructive to do with that time. So either they'll go traveling, they might go do some au pair work across, so that they're helping out in another country. They're building their life experiences, so that when they do decide they want to go to university, if that is their choice, then they have more to offer. They also have that lifelong experience, lifelong learning they've added to it, and it just it well rounds the individual, makes them more employable in that way. The other thing that actually kind of touched on what Kate was saying is there is something called distance learning as well. You don't actually have to physically be at a university to gain a degree these days. We talk a lot about Open University. There are plenty of others available that do that, but where you can learn from home still. So if your situation means that you cannot really leave the house to go and do these things, perhaps you're a carer, full-time carer for someone, but you still want to gain that degree, then that could be a really good opportunity for you, where you can still, you're still learning. You still get the same education, you get the same qualification at the end of it, but you've just done it all in the comfort of your own home. So that works for some people. It takes a lot of motivation to do that. So there are always pros and cons with these things. Definitely worth a conversation with someone to try and weigh up your options, though.
Brilliant, thank you. And I'm going to direct this one on to Fred very briefly. So what's the CV? Do I need one right now? And if not, when should I be creating one?
So I would suggest to create one now. So if you have just finished your GCSEs, it's great, because then you can actually put your actual results on your CV. It doesn't matter that it doesn't have a lot on it. So if you have any kind of volunteer, when it comes to work experience wise, you can add in there your year 10 work experience if you have done it, or any volunteer work or anything that you've done even during lockdown, that you helped sort of supporting the family or anything like that. Do add in your CV. Remember that even if you have a very basic one, as time goes on, you will always be adding and updating your CV. So when you get a new qualification, you can add that onto your CV. Any kind of work experience that you do in the future, you can add that in there. So it's something that you'll always be updating. So I would suggest to do one now and just keep adding more things as time goes on.
Just to sort of wrap things up, yep, Jackie, go on.
I just wanted to add, some people say, oh, why do I need your CV? It's all online application forms. Why bother with a CV? Having a CV in the background with all those dates and things like that is a really good start. So you can start filling in that online application. And good practice is you would actually update that CV, which just is a brief overview of your education, your work experience, your skills that you've got. So you'd update that either whenever you change jobs or when something significant happens, or really on an annual basis. Yeah, you update your CV. So you've just got all those dates in there so that you don't have to start scratching your head and looking for bits of paper thinking, when did I do this CV? When did I do that? When did I do that job? So it's just a really good thing to have in the background so you can do your application forms as well.
Brilliant. And Michael, just very briefly.
Very brief top tip: have multiple CVs, because we talk about lifelong learning. It's if you've got one CV that's only for one particular type of job, it's not going to be any good to you if you're applying for something that you think that you might fit into. So do have multiple ones where you've slightly tweaked them to fit the job description of the next job, obviously within the realms of your qualifications, your experiences, but you do need to highlight different things in order to get different roles in the future. So just bear that one in mind.
Excellent, thank you. And I'm going to make this one the final question for today. So what was your favourite GCSE subject, and can you say why in one sentence? And we'll make it very brief sentences. So let's kick off with Fred.
Okay. My favourite GCSE subject was French, because I also can speak Italian and English. So I always loved languages, and I just really enjoy languages.
Very nice. Kate?
But ironically, following on Linguist's theme, for me it was German, because it was the opportunity to learn a completely new language, but encompassing so many of the other different subjects I love. You learn about the culture of the world, you learn about the food of the world, you dip into their history, their literature, all of that sort of thing. When on paper, technically, you were only studying the language. So it was kind of ticks so many different boxes just in one thing, and I found it fascinating.
Brilliant. I used to live in Germany. I think the only thing I can take from that is the Ursprung technique. Debbie, over to you.
I'm too old to have done GCSEs, but my favourite O-level subject was English. I love words, and I've got my half-written 2 or 3 novels sitting on various electronic devices around the house.
Nice plug.
And over to Michael.
For me, it was PE. I like the competitive nature of sports, but and the overall health and fitness. It's good for your physical and mental health, which for me back then was fantastic. So yeah, all about sports for me.
See, I was the opposite. I used to hate PE. I'd always try and be a referee for football. Jackie?
For me, it was history. There's so much in history, there's so much to learn, and I was good at it. I got 85% in my mock exam when I was in year 10 or 11, and 20 years later I did a history degree and a history master's, so got to be history.
Very nice. Excellent. Well, folks, a huge thank you for coming on for both A-level last week for some of you and also GCSE today. I think it's, for any young person that's watching this, I know rewinding the clock, if I had this to be able to tune into for an hour and post my questions, I think I would have got so much value out of it. So just a huge thank you for coming on.
Can we just do a shout out to the BTEC students, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
And we're thinking of them, and I know things have got complicated for them as well, but there's a lot of BTEC students out there as well. So let's hope that that sorts itself out. And again, just go and talk to people. There's lots of options.
Yeah, well, watch this back as well. I'll put that out there. But yeah, folks, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Thank you.
So that was our GCSE special, talking about pathways with a fantastic group of colleagues, everything from apprenticeships to going to college, sixth form and everything in between. So huge thank you to all of them. So this is our last Careers and Coffee on both obviously A-level and GCSE results days. And we'll be starting Careers and Coffee season 2 on the 8th of September. So we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks.